All right, with less than 24 hours to the presentation of the 2020 budget by the Finance Minister, Ken Oforiatta, many Ghanaians are looking forward to what the budget will contain. Not only that, but what will the contents do to improve the well-being of the business community? That sounds like something we read a day before the budget always, right? Philip Nofori joins me in studio with more on this. He's having this in front of him. It's got all the pointers towards the 2020 budget. But why are we making so much noise about this budget reading? It's a year before the election, right? Or a few months before the 2020 elections. What is key about this budget? Philip Nofori hopefully has some answers. Philip?
Okay, Darryl. So first budget of this government outside the International Monetary Fund's Extended Credit Facility Program. So our first budget is not going to witness any IMF conditionality, for lack of a better word. Second, like you said, 2020 elections coming up. So there's pressure on us to maintain discipline as we go into the election. I was going through a blog put together by some IMF economists, and it says a very fancy title: Will pro-cyclicality override Ghana's new fiscal responsibility law? And as I was going through it, one thing was key. What they were trying to drum home was the fact that we are entering an election year, and more often than not, in election years, apart from 2004, we've had a case of overruns, where we spend much more than we are raising in revenue. Now, we've passed a number of laws. December 2018, we passed the Fiscal Responsibility Act. We also have the Fiscal Responsibility Council. Now, will those have the teeth to ensure that whoever is in charge of the public purse is held at bay and will not go and land us in another expenditure revenue gap? So the first thing we should look out for is the numbers, the expenditure and revenue numbers. And most importantly, where are we spending these funds? I know Dr. Mark Asibe-Yeboah, Chairman of the Finance Committee of Parliament, said it's going to be a tight budget. He had an interaction with George Weafe, and he said it's going to be a tight budget. When we say tight, maybe we are referring to contractionary. So where should we see them cutting? Where should we see funds going? Also bear in mind that 2017, a number of flagship programs were put in place. So you have large expenditures up front. You have other things like the 2020 election also. And we have laws that are going to prevent us from going over the fiscal deficit cap of 5%. So a tough sell, but we should look out not only in these numbers and making sure that we stay online, but where will the funds actually go to? That's the first thing.
That was going to be the next question I was going to ask you. Where exactly are the funds going? For instance, I've heard people say government is going to invest more in road infrastructure because you know there have been so many complaints about roads. Where do you think the monies are going to go to?
Okay, so I would assume, without any empirical evidence, I'll base it on anecdotal evidence and my own opinion, that they'll want to finance some critical infrastructure that they themselves set out from 2017. They'll have to take a stock of the programs and policies they put in place, especially their flagship ones, and see which ones need some completion quickly, because we have to take into account the political factors around our public finances. So that's one. But apart from the daily expenditures of wages and salaries, interest payments, we need to see how much is going to go to capital expenditure. Because if a lot doesn't go to capital expenditure, then we should see that more of it will be coming from borrowing. And that has implications for our public debt. The IMF in this most recent Article 4 consultation communique said, let me just quote a bit. In addition, long-standing losses in the energy sector have spilled over to the budget, and together with the cost of the financial sector cleanup, have contributed to the rise of the public debt, projected at about 63% by end year. But the government is committed to keeping budget deficits, excluding financial sector structuring and energy costs, below 5%, as well as a primary surplus in line with the Fiscal Responsibility Act. Bear in mind that we don't have the financial sector cost and energy cost as part of our budget numbers. Yesterday, I heard a case of Atu Forson, Member of Parliament, discussing with Evans Mensah, I beg your pardon, on Top Story, about how some of these things are being creatively accounted for and all other of things. We will need to see a true picture of the expenditure coming forward and what we've done so far, because he will also update us on the things that have transpired over the course of the fiscal year. We should see that. Another thing we should look out for, Darryl, is the financial sector. And we've had a lot of activities in there. Let's see how much indeed, given the SEC action also, it will cost us.
I hear we're running out of time on this one, but I want to pull up the Joy Business poll because another big one has to do with the taxes and whether or not we are going to see any more tax exemptions or we are going to see tax increases. If we can pull up that the result of that poll, what is your thinking ahead of the 2020 budget presentation?
One, they will be looking for more revenue, but they should find creative ways, as they themselves stated in the budget. Two, they wouldn't want to bother the citizenry with new taxes because obviously it's an election here. So they have to weigh the pros and cons of any actions they take. And tomorrow we'll see what exactly the finance minister has in store for us.
All right, so we can take a look at what you guys have been saying tonight, as we've been asking whether or not you expect government to reduce taxes in the 2020 budget. And a majority of you are not that expectant. 57% of you say no, you do not expect a reduction in taxes, and 43% of you say yes. So I guess you're going to find out what the outcome will be tomorrow when the finance minister presents the budget to Parliament. Yes. Thank you very much indeed, Philip Namfuri. He will be in studio with other people, a lineup. We've got a great team we are working out for you tomorrow to cover this all-important budget 2020. And so you want to stick around here on JoyNews for your updates on the budget presentation. Thanks very much indeed. So still on the budget, the managing director for the Ghana Airports Company Limited has been speaking to us. Yao Kwakwa says the rehabilitation of the Sunyani and Tamale Airport Phase 2 projects are among some proposals made by the company for consideration in the 2020 budget. He spoke to my colleague Sheila Tamaklo.
But let me talk about some of the projects that we are thinking about, or we have started. Okay. I believe you are aware of the Kumasi Phase 2 project that we've even brought the Phase 3 to save money and to help us build more capacity for the sector. We also have the Tamale Phase 2 project that has virtually broken ground now. And here in Accra, we have the project building a new apron for parking that we call Northern Apron. That is at the northern part of the airport. That is why we call it the Northern Apron, because it's a mere description of where the apron is located, and it's that way. And also, the airport in Sunyani was closed down for a long time because of disrepair of the apron. That is of the runway, the taxiway, the apron, and a bit about the terminal building. So we have started a project to also refurbish the Sunyani airport so that people from that region could also have the opportunity to go home quickly, for business people to go back and forth. So once again, spare economic development of the nation.
Now, Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia has justified the recent regulatory action aimed at cleaning up the securities industry. According to him, this is needed to promote a sound financial environment. Dr. Bawumia said this at the launch of the new guidelines for repurchase agreement. George Affe has more.
Speaking at the launch of the new repurchase guidelines, the Vice President Dr. Mahmoud Bawumia noted that as a government, they believe that these actions are needed to protect funds of investors in the country.
Having attained macroeconomic stability through the pursuit of prudent policies over the last 3 years, and with steps taken to clean up and institute reforms in the financial sector, government believes that both process and product innovations and a sound regulatory environment will remain key catalysts to unlocking the growth and developmental potential of the country. Let me therefore assure you of government support in all the initiatives that the financial regulatory bodies are pursuing to deepen financial markets, ensure soundness, safety of transactions, and confidence in the financial sector in the country.
Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta, on his part, was also optimistic that these new guidelines would help reduce government cost of borrowing going forward.
A well-regulated and improvable market will provide market players with the much-needed liquidity by temporarily converting liquid assets into cash to meet their financing needs, putting an end to outright sales which could adversely affect their books should the prevailing market conditions turn against them. These guidelines officially endorse the GMRA as the industry standard agreement for the repo market in Ghana and will serve to strengthen the Bank of Ghana's ability to use repos as a tool to more efficiently implement monetary policy.
Governor of the Bank of Ghana, Dr. Ernest Addison, also noted that the new arrangement will help improve market confidence.
While the volume of overnight interbank trading among the universal banks amounted to 27 billion cedis at the end of the third quarter of 2019. These trends show the huge potential of repos as reliable and cost-effective source for the short-term funding for market participants. It is against this background that the Bank of Ghana, together with other stakeholders, have decided to introduce a GMRA-based repo market in Ghana. Ladies and gentlemen, the guidelines being launched today is based on the standard 2011 Global Master Repurchase Agreement.
The guideline for the repurchase agreement is expected to give some legal framework, or let's say comfort, to investors that actively participate or buy government securities. These guidelines, according to the Bank of Ghana, have been developed in consultation with key market stakeholders in the financial sector, namely the Ghana Fixed Income Market, the Central Securities Depository, with technical support from the International Capital Market Association and Frontclear. The launch of the repurchase agreement brought together players, regulators in the securities industry, the country's development partners that support government in the area of financial development.
So in a related development, the Registry General says her outfit will liquidate all 53 fund management firms affected within the year. Jemima Wari tells Joy Business they are committed to fast-tracking the process to ensure that investors get all their funds on time.
The notice has come out that investors or creditors are going to be paid at least a capped amount of 20,000 from the government. That's the government's,
for the fund manager clients or the fund manager?
Yeah, for the fund manager clients.
Okay.
I mean, the government is doing this. I mean, it shouldn't really be so, but it's a really hard time at a time like this. So that upfront is going to give some relief to the creditors or the investors, as we term it in this industry. After that, the most important thing is to realize the assets for each company. I know that some were closed down even before this action was taken by SEC. What it means is that it's possible that such companies are assetless. Now, when we go into the books and we realize there are depositors who should be paying monies to these various firms, we'll have to go after them. We might have to carry out forensic audits on all these firms and find out where those monies went. If we have to contact Yoko to assist us to lift the veil, we will do it. Because at the end of the day, we'll have to prove that they benefited from the investments of these, innocent creditors. Because at the end of the day, monies were paid to them. So where did those monies go? We'll have to make an effort to trace wherever these monies have been sent or wherever these assets have been placed. It's possible these monies were used to personally benefit some of these directors. We have to prove that. It's not as simple as that. So all these, it's not like I can say next week or 2 weeks. It takes time. But the first things first, let me get the orders from the court first. Once the court grants me the orders, what it means is that, clearly the assets would have been locked down. So we'll get a valuer. A valuer, I'll appoint a valuer, an external valuer, who will value each company's assets. We'll get a forensic audit of find out who are the debtors. Because there are quite a number of debtors who think that once,
the company's down,
then they ask, no, we'll come after them. If we have to come after them, those who have to pay will have to.
In other news tonight, the Ghana Chamber of Commerce and Industry has hinted Nigeria's government has agreed to reopen its border with Benin next week. Leadership of the chamber revealed the agreement was reached after a high-level meeting between Ghanaian and Nigerian officials. Now, Foreign Affairs and National Integration, as well as Trade Ministries, Chamber of Commerce and other institutions were represented. Prince Apia has more.
The business and industrial tour by the Chamber of Commerce and Industry is meant to encourage its members Budding businesses in the chamber had opportunity to learn from the thriving and experienced ones. Also, Samoa Farms, UniJ Fashion Limited, and Adonko Bitters of the Angel Groups were all visited during the tour. First was the factory of Adonko Bitters, whose leadership explained they are losing $500,000 every week from the border closure. Here is the founder and CEO, Mr. Kweku Oteng.
Nigeria forced to board them when I affect a company. Why? Because every week it should be $500,000 for every week. Since I went through almost 3 months, and in the 3 months, what I say for week
the border closure has really affected the company. We are losing about $500,000 every week, so $2 million every month for the 3 months of the closure. It's a crippling situation. Our goods of about 11 trucks are stuck at the border. Other trucks have even returned to Ghana with all the complications. We plead with you to help with the situation.
Leadership of the chamber revealed an agreement has been reached after a high-level meeting between Ghanaian and Nigerian officials over the border closure. Chamber President Nana Dr. Apije Dankawoso I says the border will be open next week, barring any last-minute changes after a meeting with Nigerian government.
We have agreed through the Ministry of Trade, Ministry of Foreign Affairs and National Integration, and with the Chamber of Commerce and other related associations, we have agreed, and the Nigerian government is saying that they will allow Ghanaian vehicles or products to enter anytime they get to the border. So those that are entering and those that are exiting, we have agreed, and we are expecting that come next week, all these things will be a thing of the past. It's rather unfortunate that most Ghanaians have lost. We didn't like the way the whole thing went, but we are hoping that they will go by their words, and by next week, all these things will be a thing of the past.
He continued that the Continental Free Trade Agreement should compel a lasting solution to these border challenges.
Coming into force of the Continental Free Trade, I think all these things have to be fashioned out and to make sure that we are having one common market for Africa, and Ghana is the secretariat. So therefore, we need to sit down once again to look out for all these things.
UniJ Fashion Limited was the next stop, then also Samoa Poultry Farm was the final destination. It was meant to understand the challenges and see how those can be addressed. Prince Apia reporting.
Now, the Volta River Authority says it has reduced its debt stock from 600 million cedis to 150 million. According to Board Chairman Kweku Oteng, measures taken by the company to increase its power export to neighboring countries have started yielded results. This is expected to turn around the fortunes of the company. Mr. Oteng spoke to Joy Business's Ebenezer Sabute after a stakeholders meeting in Accra.
The Volta River Authority VRE has increased its revenue for the year 2018 by more than 6% over the previous year. This is as a result of increment in volumes of energy sold to customers and government bodies during the year. Despite this performance, the company has not been able to pay dividends to the government over several years. Board Chairman Kweku Oteng in an interview told Joy Business that proactive measures are being put in place to change the situation in the coming year.
Also reduced quite considerably our finance costs. When we came in to the authority 2 years ago as a board, we had borrowed a lot of money, we were incurring a lot of financial fees and expenses, and we've cut that down from over 600 million cedis a year to less than around 150 million. That's also considerable. And I think so the last thing, which is also very important and made probably the biggest impact, is that we have expanded our exports, in particular to Burkina Faso, where now we have exporting over 100 megawatts of power to Burkina Faso, and that has really increased our revenue stream to the export market.
The company also reduced its losses by about 49%, which they attribute to some efficient policies embarked on. According to the chief executive, Emmanuel Entridako, the VRE is having a negotiation with the government on payment of dividends.
Dividend, I'm having a negotiation with SIGA. It will take a bit of time. Let me put it that way. But the Ministry of Finance insists that SOEs should be seen to be paying dividends. But that's a decision that we have to make as a board. We have to look at our financials at the end of the year. If we think that we've made decent profit, we'll pay dividends. But I don't think it will be next year. We probably will aim at next year.
The board chairman also hinted of plans to restructure VRE in 2021. Ebenezer Sabute's report for Joy Business.
Before we go tonight, the Ghana Airport Company Limited has stressed safety to maintain carriers and attract more. The Airport Company Limited is reiterating its commitment to maintaining high safety standards at the nation's airports to make it an attractive destination for more carriers. According to the Director for Safety and Environment, Edmond Korte, reducing accidents is paramount to boosting air travel.
The objective of the Airport Safety Week celebration is to deliberate safety measures and highlight the need for high-level safety standards at the airports and among various stakeholders such as airlines, passengers and ground handlers. Speaking to Joy Business at the launch of the week-long celebration, Manager for Safety and Environment for the Ghana Airports Company Limited, Edmond Korte, stressed the company's commitment to maintaining high safety standards.
Now, safety is, I think, utmost. It is paramount. It's a key thing for aviation industry. Without a safe airport, without safe flights, you cannot get your passengers to and from the nations and the countries within this world. Again, we are trying to reduce, the risk of death, the risk of accidents at this aerodrome and also at other aerodromes, because anything that happens here could also affect the aircraft and its end destination. So you could again have maybe a tire burst because of FOD on a runway at this location, and because of that the landing will be affected, which would cause again an overshoot and damage of the aircraft, including possible loss of lives. So again, safety is more about saving lives than just paperwork and operational activities that go around it.
That's it for Business Live tonight. Thanks for watching. My name is Darryl Kwa. Remember that we've got coverage of the 2020 budget presentation right here on this channel beginning tomorrow morning. Do not miss it.